we're live on the internet. It's us. We're here. We're having like a really riveting, interesting conversation about Grace's home game, and the fact that why don't you just like start from there again, Grace? Like,
yeah, I was saying it was the session on the weekend where we sort of like it was this big reveal. We sort of like figured out who like a real big bad, big bad energy from this person, and we're in this moment where like we thought we had kind of like gotten one up on them. We didn't think they were the big bad. We thought that they were like a bad guy that we were gonna do.
Sure,
and then
antagonist.
when she duped, she like was like, oh no, you're not in control, and if you like move an inch, I'm gonna power word kill you. Like, and so we're like, okay, all right, here, take the magic item that we used as like the incentive to like lure them in, like, come help us get this thing. And so it was like, it's that moment where like, it's like not the end of the movie, right? Like, this is not the finale, but also you want, like, we're heroes, right? That's who we, so it's like, you don't want to like be like, yeah, fine, take the item, go, leave. You're like, you're a bad person who killed people, so I want to kill you, but I can't. But so I have to like swallow my pride and just feel bad about it, until later.
Yeah, especially to like have to like accept the defeat and like walk away,
It's so bad.
Like I've been like in a number of situations like that, like some of which are like people are dying and you come to the point of like the death spiral where you realize like if the rest of us don't run now, we all die, and like die together, but also like it took me a long time to get to 8th level. So like I'm out.
Like there is Revivify, if somebody can get out.
If somebody gets out alive, like maybe you can get everybody else back, right? There's so much drama there, but to have to like swallow the loss. So here's my question: what level are you guys that you're getting threatened with power word kill? That's the gun to your head.
We're 6th level, so
excellent. Great. Yeah. Overmatch.
Yeah. We're not powerful enough to do anything. Yeah.
This is the classic rule of overmatch was like, instead of CR in Advanced Dungeons & Dragons 2nd Edition, there was like overmatched. You just like, we would go like completely over the top, and Taylor and my friend Mike consistently like, we love that term.
So I should say there was a very powerful wizard like standing in the doorway being like, give me the thing and you can't leave or I'll power kill you. Also, I'm going to like uncharm the fire giant behind you. I should say that as well. So it's like, they're like, I'll also just teleport away, and then the fire giant, you'll have to fight them. You've already fought one fire giant, so you're definitely depleted on all of your stuff. It was very well set up. It was very, very good.
In Wheel of Time terminology, that's when you get trapped between the hammer and the stone. Yeah. Brutal. That's brutal.
At least though, like I like when it's a situation like that. At least like exactly what you need to do in that moment. I always struggle when there's a situation where you're like, I think we're all gonna die. But I also think, I don't know if we're supposed to run or like, and then I've definitely had situations after the fact where the DM was like, I thought it was really obvious that you all needed to just leave. And I'm like, how is that? Like, we're never just going to leave. You have to make it really obvious.
Really hard to like have your party run.
This is a thing I talk about all the time where I do think like, you talk about like metagaming and it gets this label. It's just a bad term. Colville did a great video about this and he articulates it differently than I will now.
I'm drinking because you said Colville. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got to it early tonight. But just the notion that like there is, I think, value sometimes as DMs to be like, hey, so this is a thing that should be really clear to you if it's not, like just in case like you players are not like picking up the signal and putting down. And it can be really tough. Like you feel as a DM this pressure to like create immersion and stay in character and not spell things out. But it's one of these weird things. Even I talk about it when you design puzzles too, that sometimes stuff seems so obvious from behind the screen because like you've lost context for like how much information you have compared to the players. Like the players have all this imperfect information, they're not sure, they're guessing, they're like not at all thinking in the same way that you are usually. And like it can be helpful to be like, your character would understand at this moment like you will die here.
It's I was thinking like I remember there's a situation in Critical Role in campaign 2, and I won't do spoilers, but there's a thing that like the group does and they come back and they're very worried about the consequences of their actions of having done it, and Matt is trying so hard to be like, here's all the reasons why like you'll be
Yep.
fine and you can go
Yep.
and it will be, you won't, there are no
Yep.
they were like every excuse, and they don't pick up on it. And I do think it's like a thing I've learned a lot from DMing is that like I feel like I'm often have to be like, I'll always like set the scene and then people are like, I'm gonna do this, and then I'll be like, oh, like I don't think I clearly didn't explain it well enough, like what's
Yep.
because like that either like that you can't actually do that, like there's or that really doesn't make sense to try and do that, and like, but then you feel like you're like tipping, I don't know, like not, that doesn't feel as much as railroading as like, I don't want to be the DM who's being like, well,
tells you what
don't
to
do
do.
that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is, I don't know, my favorite example of that in Critical Role, and this is like micro spoilers for the back end of Campaign 1. I will just say there's a point where like literally it's like the epilogue to the whole campaign, and one of the people gets like hung up on a thing that is totally not a thing, right, Taylor? Like, do you know what I'm talking about, Taylor? At the very end, and Mercer is like just falling over backwards to be like, no, this is exactly what it appears to be. And the player like spends like almost the entirety of like their final moments with this character after years fixating on like this thing that is nothing, this like misalignment of expectations. And I love it. It's so like beautiful sometimes and frustrating others.
Do you guys have things that like in your home, like in the games you played earlier, where like, because my first DM Jared, he threw mimics at us so early, we are always like, every chair, every bed, every chest, that's a mimic. You got to check for mimics, gotta do a quick mimic check of the room.
Gosh, I'll say I like very early on when I started playing like serious D&D with Rich in the home game. One of our I feel like it was the beginning of the campaign. We were going into these like ruins of this like terrifying like ancient elven
Mythriffle.
Mythriffle. Yes, we were going down there and we were studying these columns that had like all this sort of writing all over them. And just like, like out of like all of a sudden, because of course something was going to happen, this like ooze, this black like, or it was like an elder like black
pudding, a like black
ooze
pudding
or pudding or whatever. Yeah.
It's an ooze. It's just the specific type of ooze was a black pudding, and so like I just juiced it up, right? Like elder black pudding, It was like a like monstrous, like epic black pudding,
But yeah, from there on out, I was all scared of when we like investigated stuff that we were gonna get like consumed by puddings.
Yeah. I had a good run at them with the doppelganger for a minute too, Taylor, and there was a point like for a short while afterwards where everybody was like, it's a doppelganger, it's a doppelganger, it's a doppelganger. Yeah. This is like, they all had code words and stuff. Like that kind of stuff can be like really infuriating as a DM, but like also like you make your own bed. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, what do you think is going to happen when you infiltrate the party with the like vicious NPC?
Yeah. Speaking of having to accept like a terrible loss, like. Forever, I will be haunted by the session that I missed, where our beloved treehouse that housed this like family of elves got burnt, and we couldn't do anything about it. Like, or at least I couldn't do anything about it.
Our home game was set up a lot like the Post Show Recaps Discord, right? It was a West Marches, but smaller. So there's a village, and like they operated out of the village for a while. People lived here, people lived there. Some of them would like wandered out of the woods. They would meet at the inn, go on an adventure. It came to a point where they like got sponsored by the mayor, and he was like, hey, you want to take over this abandoned building? It can be your chapter house. Like, they got an official charter, but they had like satellite locations. There was a place like further up the coast to the east where like they took over an old like bandit fortress and set up a base there with like a teleportation circle. And then like to the west was this like great forest and the family of elves. And so it was this awesome treehouse with like a sick map, and they would hang out there, and for like years the map was just like, okay, where are you? Who's sleeping on what floor? Where are you while you talk to these NPCs? Where do the griffins land? You're like griffin mounts. Where's the airship parked outside, And so like inevitably, like, there were demons pouring out of the city for years, and it was one of these things that I like to do, and it's a thing I do in Dragonfly. the show that we're all on together.
Oh yeah.
Where
Yeah,
like
that's
it's a thing I've like stolen from other games. I think it's from Apocalypse World is probably the first place I saw it. Countdown clocks, where like you have like clocks, right? And there are you can sort of split them up like a pie, like your Trivial Pursuit piece or whatever with your slices, and there are just kind of like triggers of the players like making certain choices or not making the choice, which is its own choice, right? Like the clock is going to advance and like these kinds of things are going to happen. And so, yeah, there is this perpetual, like, what do we do every week with the West Marches energy of that campaign? And they would sometimes get fixated where for like 2 months we're going to go back to Mithriffle and like clear this one dungeon. And then they would go off somewhere else and like leave Mithriffle alone. And we just hit the point in the countdown clock where like, yeah, the demons burn the treehouse down. They're sick of these adventurers who like show up and like keep like coming into their turf and killing them. And yeah, the next day was like the recap, the lore post in the Facebook where like the first sentence is like, "The forest is burning."
It's like, oh my
death,
god,
death
I'm like in the
and
middle
fire,
of work.
death and fire
like,
in the
yeah,
trees.
I like look at my phone and there's a little notification that's like, the forest is burning, and I was like, what did you guys do?
You know the price we're gonna pay for collecting and amassing adorable NPCs at some point?
Oh,
like, it's just like
absolutely.
at least one of them will probably die at some point.
I'm very patient. I'm very patient.
I know. Don't rip it off too quick.
yeah,
Don't go
he's
too
letting
quickly.
us get nice and attached.
Nice and attached. Yeah.
Well, I've been seeing a lot of like on TikTok. I'm like, my D&D TikTok has been flooded with this trope of the dungeon master, like the favorite NPC that's actually like the big bad that like they've spent the entire campaign like falling in love with, but actually, ugh, it's so good. It's so bad.
Can be very
at the same
fun. It
time.
can be very fun. Yeah. So if it's not clear, tonight we're just hanging out. This is Dragonfly.
It's actually probably not that clear because this is kind of
Yeah,
like what
this
we're
is
I know.
doing.
This is
This is how we start every week.
Yeah.
This is how we start every week, which is why I'm like taking a minute to say, like, I got my COVID booster today. My butt is pretty kicked. I'm tired and worn out and like achy and need to probably go to sleep soon. So I feared that I would not make 3 hours and that if I did, I would be gassed and it would be not as good as it should be, as the Dragonfly deserves. So we decided to like get together and hang out a little bit and just talk. So yeah, like we've done this once before. I think we had like a fireside chat, but we're at like this really like interesting spot. We've been talking about it a lot, like off screen as a group of like, what are we gonna do about Occam? Like, what are we gonna do right here? As we've ended up in like this loop where like originally we envisioned the Dragonfly being more West Marchy, having like more interchange in the players, and we've consolidated and kind of coalesced into this sort of core team. And we've gotten to this place where we also like, this is part of my thing is pacing. Like I'm always learning. I talk about all the time, like I've been doing this forever. Like, yeah, all right. It's like, it doesn't really mean anything. Like I'm still learning every time I play. And like, we expected faster pacing. My vision in the beginning was to like hit more planets, a little bit more like episode of the week, one shot style. But we've got hooked into this like really interesting loop where for the last like I don't know 2 months almost solid we're like flying around in this like asteroid cluster of this planet like ripping apart, and we're into like the deep lore of like a lot of different things but only like a little bit. And there's this adversary chasing us. Now you guys have like captured a ship. You have prisoners that we've not dealt with in like 3 sessions, though it's only like 12 hours in game. Like there's definitely prisoners in cells along with a whole ton of elementals. There's a whole like bunch of like methods and cells of your captured ship. You don't exactly have enough people to crew both ships, but you probably have too many to all live in the Dragonfly forever. And there's a guy who's a bit of a jerk that is ostensibly working with you, and it's just like, let me take this ship. How about that would be cool? While you've like dealt with all these other things. So I'm just curious, like where your heads are at as like players in the midst of all of this. There's a lot happening on Dragonfly.
it felt like with all that stuff, it was like, okay, we have a plan. We kind of have a plan. We're gonna like lure Occam here, and then suddenly it was like, oh, there's a portal over there.
Yeah, shiny thing.
Yeah, we got distracted.
Also, there's a portal.
Shiny thing.
Yeah, we gotta check that out.
Shiny.
Yeah.
Shiny.
Yeah, that's
shiny.
very
It's
much what
right
happened.
here. We might as well check it out while we're here. You know.
So yeah, I think someone was like, "That's the bigger unknown." You know, the big
Yeah, it
portal.
was Troy trying to justify us because we wanted to go to the portal.
All right.
Yeah.
Go to the portal. Got the deal from the Shadowfell. Yeah. So I don't know. The pacing, if you're asking specifically about the pacing, I think it's been really fun. I feel like we sort of end up in it doesn't like when you talked about that you thought it was going to be faster paced. I'm not sure that I kind of like that we fly somewhere and then it feels like we get to like live there for it's not like one episode.
Yep.
And then we piece out. Like if you like when you spend multiple episodes there, it really feels like you get to know people there. I feel like still very I hate that guy from the first Malpiety Prime. No, where did we go?
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
you went to
that
Malpiety
Lord,
Prime.
like guy or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, he was
Oh,
supposed to be. He's like saying he's
terrible.
taking care of the little boy, and then he's like actually like keeping him hostage. Like God, I hate that guy. You know, but like,
Yeah.
like that
I think
worked
that was
because
Declan. Yeah.
yeah, that worked because it was
Oh,
like a 3-4. I don't know. There was also the sabotage game in there, so like many episodes to like when you talked about like not like pulling the band-aid off too, not like revealing stuff too quickly. I think if like in one episode we like arrive and he's like, hey, I'm cool, and then he's like not cool at the end of the episode, it doesn't hold as much like emotional weight, right? So I kind of like the pace. Like it feels like when when we sort of wrapped up some stuff, we're like, okay, bye,
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I love the Cerealia arc. I feel like that one was probably my favorite so far. And Rich, can I get Waroto in Old Ben voice, please?
Waroto.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I have some meat and fish from Waroto. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, we've not been to a ton of places. I guess like that's where I'm looking at it from, right? Like in the moment, I feel good about all this stuff, and I'm like an old traditional D&D player, so I'm used to like the slow burn, like everything taking forever. My like I walked uphill both ways to schools in the snow story is like I played my character for 6 years and like a full-time job. 30 hours a week, like multiple sessions a week. And I got to 11th level, like that was a feat. I was the highest level ranger ever of anybody who ever played a ranger. And all of those guys played rangers for like years. So, like, I don't, I'm not espousing that. That was like a terribly designed system. And like a
That's why we're
total
never allowed to
failure.
level up is because Rich has all
Yeah.
this trauma that he's working
Yeah.
There
I
is
don't, like-
though, like I don't know. There's a bit like in our home game we always joke because like it feels like a very long time since we've been playing this game for like since right before COVID, and we're all like 6th level.
Yeah, that's a long time.
It does compared to like I have a 6th level character in the Discord, right?
Yep.
So but then like I think simultaneously like those two things, like as a DM I feel like I'm like in one game I'm running, I feel like I'm leveling them up too quickly. Like it feels like unearned to suddenly have new tools just cuz. And then on the other hand, like you can feel like it's a long time. So I don't know if there's like a perfect leveling up system.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
level
know
up
that
like
there is.
wildly in my home game. Like we've been playing this campaign since end of January, and we're level 11.
Wow.
But
Wow.
it's also like not that much longer than we've been playing in the Discord, and I play that every week versus how often I get to play in the Discord. So I
Sure.
think it's actually maybe comparable. It just feels so much faster because
Well,
in that same
yeah.
amount of time, I've also got to a 6th level character in the Discord.
Like Taylor and I were talking about it, but we just wrapped up Firelight Tales, which was like my flagship stream, the one that I started with in January. And we went from 3rd, did I start you at 3rd, up to like 7th, and it was like 28 episodes. But nonetheless, the point was just to say that we've been talking about like going back to our home game and like streaming some of that here maybe. And so she went to jump on her character. It was like, oh my God, experience points. Because, like, yeah, I did experience points. Because, like, part of the fun to me as a West Marches, and it's something we could never do in post show, because I would never make the other DMs do this part of it or request that they should. But it's part of my, like, culture is like the end of the session, the players go, experience! And then I go, all right, give me a minute. And like I sit here and do a bunch of like really like complex, arcane, stupid math. And then I like sprinkle in like that was awesome role playing, and like you guys did this cool
Ken
thing.
Wallace Luther.
Yeah, exactly. I'll be like, if somebody remembers like this like ridiculous NPC's name at the end of the session, you get bonus XP. You know,
Rich, it will not surprise you that when I started DMing a game, I was very, very enamored by the mathematical system XP style. The only problem is with running a module is that you like end up in play like you can level, like you can change, you can like balance it as you need, but they're like the modules like they should be this level by the time they get there. And they're like, but the XP has not, and like I joked that like, you know, if I went by XP, like it'd be more beneficial for you. And I think I've seen the Brennan Lee Mulligan story about how like every Wizard Academy, if you went by XP, just be like, welcome to Wizard class day 1. We're gonna go kill some goblins. And they're like, we're not gonna like read a textbook. It's like, nope, we need to kill goblins. You can experience and learn
get
new
that
spells.
quarterstaff.
If you keep killing goblins because it's the best like bang for your buck XP wise. It's like nope, still goblins.
Time for a genocide, boys.
They show up to fight all this stuff, and it's like I have to like rebalance it all because it like they're not where they should be. So like but then in my head I'm like, oh, but what happens if they like love these characters and want to play another story after this that's like is not a module, but like whatever, it'll all
that
work
was a
out,
traditional part of like the module experience, right? Is like that's part of the buy-in from the players of like go through the dungeon, because there is the knowledge on the players' behalf that they're playing a game. And if you circumvent all of this stuff, you will not get experience for it. And then when you get to the end, you're going to die. And you're going to die bad because you're going to be like really underleveled. Or there's like that DM thing where like you constantly have to be creating your own stuff to like feed into the module to like, you know what I mean? Make sure that the players are where they need to be. It's really interesting. I don't know. But
what's your like take on like, you have a group of characters, you have this like adventure that or like this combat that they could earn XP from. What's the point in which if they're like, nope, see ya, like do they get XP, or do they have to like engage, like
overcome?
Like, because
to me is like
this is the thing we're talking about, like running away, right? Like if you just run away every time, then you like you don't get the XP, but that also incentivizes your characters every single time they have to fight. Oh god, this we gotta fight it, or else we'll like die and we don't get the XP.
To me, the thing is like overcome, right? Like run away, disengage, like omit the conflict or whatever to like avoid the conflict entirely by like running away is different than we're gonna sneak past the conflict. We're gonna use invisibility and pass without trace and fly and acrobatics and ropes and like get past it, or we're gonna go in and engage with deception and persuasion and intimidation and like social skill muscle through it, or we're just gonna use like a clever spell. Here comes the professor. Just TPK him all at the end. You don't. It's true. Professor's
don't
got
worry
hot
about
takes.
XP.
But I'm saying like, you know, the overcome part of it, like outplay, outlast, Grace, you know, like they have to engage with the encounter to overcome the encounter. Like running from it, like I give XP for losing fights sometimes. You don't have to win, you have to like survive sometimes, like knowing to turn and run from this fight so you can like get better positioning and like create the fight again on your own terms. That's smart tactics, you know. Like the thing that you learned quick like back in the day with like the experience system is you always do want to add in like your own like DM experience. Like that's where DM inspiration doesn't click with me. It's easier for me to complete the session, look back and be like, what happened? What stood out? What did I love? Oh yeah, the bar is short-staffed. That was fucking hilarious. 3,000 XP. You know, like I'll miss it in the moment because I'm too like fixated on whatever it is that I'm going to do next, you know. But I don't know. We just were talking about pacing a lot, and I think that I like the pace we're at with the Dragonfly. I hope it's trackable for an audience, and it feels like you guys have like thrived in it as players. But like my big picture, like talking about the post show recaps Discord too, like, 3 years to me, that's like a 1 through 20 arc. I think that's like really like fulfilling, and it's a long time, but it's not too long. I don't think. Like, I don't know, 3 seasons of TV. Like it's a lot. It's a lot of life, and like you'll change in that time, but it's really rewarding to be able to look back and be like, wow, we started this a long time ago. I don't know. Yeah.
I feel like I was super lucky to in our home game because I got to come in at level 6, which was awesome, as a like Circle of the Moon druid, and got to 13th level, which is still my highest character. My like second highest is my arcane trickster rogue, who got to 12, which was very fun. But yeah, I think I like the 3 years, and I mean I was playing with you guys for like 2 years, 6 to 13, and we like we thought our fights scaled though, I mean gosh, like the last like 2 combats that I remember were like ancient red dragon in like one level of the 9 hells, and like then the Dracolich, and like
You guys fought a lot of crazy stuff. I love high level stuff. Like the last D&D that like I played really that I ran was like, it was weird because like I scaled over years. Like it took 10 years. I've talked about it a lot. It took 10 years. It was a really small group. So the last like 3 years was nothing but like 15th to 25th level. Like all I did was design stuff for ridiculously high level, and it was a druid and a wizard. So like every spell in the game, like all of them really. Their main NPCs was like a cleric. That was like, I don't know. They just had a lot going on there. I love like high end stuff, and I love like designing for it. Like I dream of the day that like the Dragonfly crew is 12th level. That's gonna be fun.
Well, you have some options to make that happen faster.
We're on our way. You guys, this was my favorite thing. Taylor shared a meme the other day of like, it was like a D&D TikTok of like this, like the freaking out of like the milestone XP. Like, yeah, please.
No.
Can we please have a level?
So
I'm just gonna keep asking. One more time.
You guys do ask, and like not in a negative way at all, but you will ask, right? Like, cause I'll just whatever, and you'd be like, so, and like Troy is really good, but yeah, you'd be like, so, how about that experience?
Yeah.
How about that level up? And then finally,
Well, and then of course the last time we leveled up, none of
everyone
us asked,
forgot.
and we were supposed.
Yeah, it was
we
very
missed
funny.
it.
We did like level up, and then everyone forgot because we had like so much fun kind of hanging out after the show. Like we got together for the next session, and everybody was like, "Wait, we leveled up! Oh my god!" We're gonna like do our stuff real quick. Okay, I get it.
When did we last level up? When did we?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm leveled up properly, but anyway, I'll go look. I'll look later.
Like I remember Jake joins for session, and we were gonna level up after that session. Was it the last session that I played in? I think so, maybe.
Yeah, Jake.
So I played at
back
6th level
to back, so you guys should all be 6.
I see I'm leveled up in Roll20. I just haven't played.
Yeah, I think that's my situation too. I think I did level up and just haven't
I keep
played
forgetting mine because I just added like a favored terrain or whatever, and I keep thinking like,
oh yeah,
was there something? No.
I'm just reading like Micah's question about like character development earning XP after the fact reflections on stuff that earn players experience or de facto XP. Yeah, honestly, like I think it's great. I'm like really into even there's like a whole nother thing that I took from an indie system that we used for a little while where like we do it in City of Mist. Where like you go around the table at the end and the players give each other rewards for like, hey, who was the workhorse? Like, who saved our like back like asses this time? Who like really drove the story forward? Who like had like the moment that shined? You know, who had like the lore? Who remembered the most like important thing? I tend to like I love giving experience for stuff that's not related to mechanical stuff, to like combat especially. Like I love experience for like if the player's like reflection afterwards it leads them to like gather information, to start like collecting NPCs to do work for them. They go to the library and tell the scribes to research this thing for them before they go off on their next adventure. Like I like it's that kind of stuff. Like I'll always do it for actions. They have to like engage with the thing in the world. But if they're like doing a thing, making a choice, taking an action, like engaging with another NPC or especially the other players, that's like reward worthy stuff to me. You know what I mean?
Do you though? You did that though in a game where it was like basically West Marches, where there was level disparity, right?
Oh yeah.
Like, what about a game where you like when you have the same like I've thought about that about like the combat XP system is like you split the XP, which makes sense. Everybody's in the everybody's in the fight and it's dice or whatever. But to do that, you then get into it is a little bit, it's a thing that like I have to like be like, yeah, that's just in the same. Like I'm at 1 HP. If I sleep for 8 hours, I am perfectly fine, But in the same way, it's like, yep, we all leveled up we all have new powers, like all at the same time. Is like one of those things that's like, it is a little bit more of an interesting, could be a little bit more of an interesting dynamic of like you leveled up, this time. Not everybody.
I talk about the old systems a lot, but part of the things I love about the old system, like I think the XP like ratios were like effed. They were not good. You did not earn it fast enough mechanically by the books. But I really love the different classes having different experience tables. Like the universal experience table to me is like because it does that, and like a fighter should be able to like get better with their sword faster than a wizard can learn new spells, and like there would be interesting curvature and growth. There was all like this different stuff happening where like a rogue could like kind of skyrocket and then they just kind of like flatline, and like the wizards grow really really slow, and then all of a sudden they start to like plane off and like really like don't need as much, whereas the fighters like they have like this nice early growth and then like this like big lull and then come back up. It was really, you could, again, like I like the mechanics that like inform you about setting, and I don't mean the specific like setting of the world, but like the stuff about the character classes, what makes them different, what's interesting about them. Like, and it emphasized the choice in the beginning too, like class choice. You had to like think about that kind of stuff. So it's tough. It is tough. Like that's part of the stuff that like sucked about old design, Grace, where like one player, there was a whole thing with like optional experience system in the DMG for second edition. Like the rogue earns 1 experience point for every copper worth of treasure they find.
Really?
Yeah, it was nuts.
Yes,
so like,
loot
XP
city.
by gold is like a whole like thing, The player rewards, like, yeah, like in City of Mist, we do it a little bit differently. We geek out to the credits.
Isn't that also kind of like a burning wheel thing?
It is. It's a burning wheel thing. That's exactly what you're talking about, Taylor. Burning wheel is sick, and I would love to play someday. But you go around at the end, and in burning wheel, the experience are single points. You don't get 100, 1,000, whatever. You get like individual points that like you're using in game. It's not experience. It's called Artha, and you use it in game to like empower your rolls. And by using it to empower your specific magic rolls, you allow your magic skill to grow. Like for your magic to get higher than a certain number, you have to burn a certain amount of Artha on it. It's a really weird system, but like
we're getting to the point where we're talking about like we all love D&D, and we get to the point where like, yeah, but it'd be a little bit better if it was this. It's like, yeah, but D&D is kind of like popular because it's so like everybody gets the same XP.
It is.
The XP is split easily. You all level up. Well, you're all there's 6 categories.
And I will say too, when it comes to like a home game, when you have a smaller group of people, when it comes to like following like character development, like Mike is talking about, like, you can have these storylines that are based on like one of your characters. Like in the, like, I know that like when we kind of left the home game, our like ranger was like dealing with a lot of family stuff, and like that was the forefront of our questing was like to help him like figure out what was happening with his family. And like I it was funny that we're talking about this because I was looking through my D&D folder on my desktop, and like there's the letter that like my druid had just wrote like to her dad, right? Like back to the tribe, and like hey, you guys should come to like this town that like we're in and like hang out with these elves. We had like your past like back to you, and like our rogue like barbarian guy is like the old like group that he was with is like a big like issue, right? So like that's like is a great way to like translate it into like how to like get experience from that. So like then you can dig into these different storylines. So that's like funny.
That's how the narrative stuff played. There was like a critical role dynamic there, and it's what I see. It's the stuff I'm trying to like emulate, or I would love to see like grow out of Dragonfly. Like, I think you guys all have like such awesomely like realized characters, and we're in now like 20 episodes here. I feel like I really like know who they are, and I'm excited. Like, we talk about it a lot, right? But we kind of started like in motion, like in media res. You guys are on a spaceship, and then like slimes, oozes, and parasites and insects. Oh my. So I'm like psyched to be able to like look backwards a little bit as we move forwards, like where you came from.
I'm excited for the the like our planets are out there. Every planet that we all, I mean, maybe not. That would be sad. A whole, that's some Star Wars
Death
right
Star
there
out there somewhere.
Oh no.
yeah, right. But like our planets are out there, so there's a lot of like as Austin says, forward story.
Yeah.
To be had with what happens when the place we go to explore next is like Locke's home planet.
I mean, I'm waiting. Like Lux is very interesting because I feel like she's not necessarily underdeveloped as a character, but underdeveloped as a person. Like she started so like her journey has been like basically peaches and cream. Like at this point, like she's got a great group of friends. Like we've dealt with some pretty tough stuff. Like I've almost died. You guys have almost died. The whole thing with the like apparatus when we were like down there and everybody was like, oh my gosh, that was crazy.
I can't believe that's a total footnote, by the way, that you're flying around with the apparatus of Qualish. I'm sorry,
love
the
it
apparatus
so
of like
much.
Hawk in the Dragonfly, and like
We will not leave anything
No, we will
behind.
not. Nothing.
It's magnetized.
it's so cool because like I see the version where you guys have like the rover with the Dragonfly parked on top with the apparatus of Qualish on the back of the head. It's like
It gives me big Subnautica vibes. Like in that game you have your giant like submarine, but you have this little thing that's like it's exactly like the apparatus, but you just kind of gets like sucked back into your submarine when you're done using it. So like you always have
biggest dream is just like Transformers this so that every new part we gain like becomes attached somehow. Like eventually like unfolds into like a mega.
There a dragonfly in there? Like
I am the red lion and I am the leg.
I mean, I tell you, you're talking that like Lux's story is peaches and cream. I mean, like she did was hiding her identity for a while, right? Like not choosing to like be choosing to sort of hide her identity, which like was called out by like several people. And I think that there's like lots, to me it doesn't, I don't necessarily like sometimes like their happiest characters are people who are like you're literally hiding something. Like, so
I guess I think of it in terms of like where she came from, right? Like her parents are very supportive of her, but also like, there's this weird thing like that she like learned this from them, right? To like hide her changelingness. And we're at this very strange point right now where like we have this portal to the Shadowfell, which is made clear to us that it like we can get to other planes of existence pretty easily through that. Which is big because Lux is like portals, right? Like, yes. But also like there's so many undiscovered things. And like there is like the a Ferris, right? Like he was mentioning where he was going off to and like this bard that like we've
the bard
like,
of the
talked
blossoms.
about. Yes.
Yeah.
and like all of these different little threads, like all of our home planets, like we were just saying, and wanting to take care of Occam, and like there's that fear of like leaving like this comfortable like space and going and finding these other things. But I think Lux is like, she's still like really figuring like herself out and is being presented to all these things. It's like, I have no idea what's going on here, but I know that that's bad, and I want to not. We need to stop that. Like, kind of like how she's navigating things.
The Lux and Doc energy is very fun to me. Like from the beginning, they're like, oh, there's two changelings, and like one of them is just like seeming a half elf. Like that's really interesting. And you guys like having that relationship. Like I've loved watching it evolve. The like protectiveness, and like you guys are, yeah, it's like a faction. You're like a legit like faction on the Dragonfly.
Yeah.
You are like a unit. Then there's like
Tag
the
team.
like Rhea, Jake
Oh my
faction.
God.
You
That
know what I
was
mean?
so-
It's really interesting.
I haven't watched last week's. I heard there's some.
I watched
Yeah.
it yesterday.
Sharp Jumper
there's some good
approached
stuff.
Jake. It was just like, I hear you're a sailor. Jake was like, nope, not really. Jake's like, I heard
never was a
you were
ship
from
captain.
a planet with like swamps, and like you lived in a swampy place. And he was like, no, that. And he's like,
Ray's just
Yeah.
making stuff
Yeah.
up. about
Sharp
it,
Jumper was like,
tall
Ray
tales.
like told me though, like that you were really important. And he's like, I'm gonna have to talk to Ray. I think sometimes Rhea might just be making things up. At which point the shadow orb was like, affirmative.
I don't even want to talk about
know.
that. That thing is
So cool.
terrifying. Lex is like, I want nothing to do with that. Mm-mm-mm.
I
No,
was
thank
watching
you.
it, and meanwhile, I'm like, I wonder what Doc would think about this orb, because Lex is like very not about it, and I think she
No.
would be pretty intrigued. So I-
I know. It's so amazing, right? Like there's so many like things that can come from it, but Lux is just like, that's creepy. It's like super weird. Like, no.
There's a lot of like interesting stuff at play, like yeah, I'm curious to see what you guys do next. And we talked about it a lot. We did this whole like world building exercise. We talked about it in one of the last Fireside chats, but we played Microscope. We like got together and did kind of like 2 sessions of Microscope and played a bit out. And we have a whole sort of cool timeline. And the way like I like talked about it initially as the Dragonfly, the whole campaign, as like Spelljammer and Planescape, because they were these 2 really cool, very different, very weird campaign settings from back in the day. And Spelljammer is very much like, okay, it's D&D in space, but like let's turn space kind of into the ocean, and like, okay, there's like planets, and there's a lot of weird stuff in Spelljammer, but fundamentally it comes down to the idea that like each of these like universes is in like its own crystal sphere, and in between the crystal spheres is this crazy stuff. I'm gonna pronounce it wrong. The like phlogiston or whatever. It's kind of like this ephemeral gas that's highly like explosive and has all these crazy magical properties, and like only certain ships can jump through it. But that's like the spell jamming. Like you could just sail around in space. How? I don't know. Magic. Spelljammer helps. But then you could like jump the crystal spheres and like go to the different crystal spheres. So I knew like from the beginning we wanted like room for that. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the phlogiston, the phlogiston, the flosh.
Phlogiston?
Are you?
Yeah.
Phlogiston?
You sound very
Yeah,
flat.
it's the
It's from your
it's the
stick. Yeah.
Phlogiston.
Am I-
Anyway, it's very weird, like cliche, weird D&D stuff, so you gotta love it. But the other notion I knew was I wanted to like dig into Planescape. Like I wanted it to be a game where like, yeah, okay, we can like jump the planes, we can go to like weird places. And so like I knew that in the Decidium Spiral I was gonna put this like gate of like too many places, that like not just a gate, there are gates all over the place, but like an activatable mechanical like arcanotech gate you know, that like the right people could be like do 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 and like, you know, hook it up, like let's set this sucker, let's like stargate to like a specific place, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be an artificer, and I'm like, okay, cool. And then you guys were running from Occam, and you're like, oh okay, we're gonna go to the city of Spiral, and I'm like,
we were very heavily debating not going to the
I
city
know.
of Spiral. There's another, there's like the whatever the like
planet of
mine.
Loon. Yeah.
Yeah. And we were like, let's go there. And then we're like, we got to almost do the like double bluff thing of like, we go to the planet that's like not a planet, that's like too dangerous to go to. And so we like went there. But like, I feel like it was like, I feel like it was one of those things where it was almost like, let's go to the Spiral. And I was like, okay, yeah, like after like back and forth debate, it was just like, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
We almost go.
Nope, there's like a whole different version of the last 3 months where like, yeah, you guys go to Loon and like deal with the halflings and the tabaxi and like the whole weirdness of that place. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
We'll go there.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
We need. I also there's that whole
like, everyone like,
library
oh,
that like
I gotta
I
go.
feel like we just didn't like.
Yeah.
I mean, we like haven't explored like anything like
Yeah.
fully.
What was in the, what's the big creature that we were
Yeah,
like, should we let him
yeah,
go?
the,
And
like,
the dog's just like,
yeah.
no.
What?
Like the genie? What are they? They're like,
Hang
what was
on.
she?
It's
Well,
a
I don't have my notes up.
it's
for
a
that.
mercane named
Yeah,
Myriad.
yeah.
A mercane.
Named Myriad.
Oh.
Yeah, not quite a merc. And so yeah, Myriad the mercane is like 8 feet tall, blue skinned, in like this very strange clothes. And I think that you got the information that she's part of the Parallel Consortium. Is that true?
Probably. Zabar had a
and-
lot of info for us
Yeah.
about them.
He was just like, no,
Yeah,
don't
no,
save
what?
her.
See?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of threads happening in the Dragonfly. You guys have like uncovered a lot of rocks and you've dug kind of deep on some of them, but like it's very much a game where like not everything's going to get answered, because like I think certain things you guys are just going to move past, and like there will be mysteries that we have to like let be, you know. I have a lot
It's
of
hard. I'm
answers,
the like
but-
video game player who's like,
Very
what's
Oh,
in
I
this
get
drawer?
it.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
in
Oh
this
my gosh.
chest? You
So
know? What's in here?
my like example that
Yeah.
I go to about completionists is Assassin's Creed Valhalla. I literally would not start like the quest in the main areas. I would just go into the areas, get everything I could, defeat all of the things, and then go, and they'd be like, "Oh, you already did this?" And I'm like, "Mm-hmm." It's like I would just barrel through the quest because I had already like explored the entire landscape. Oh,
That's amazing.
kills me.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been like a very fun adventure so far. I'm really like excited to see where you guys are gonna go. I like how engaged you guys all are. Like you seem to have really like gotten to the place where you've fallen in love with these characters, and I like certainly have, right? Like I'm very focused now on who they are, and their relationships between one another has been like super interesting.
Well, it's that. It's also like I think that I think like gosh, what's the game? What is the game that we did? Dungeons and Dragons. That's what we're
Yeah,
playing.
we played Dungeons and Dragons. Yeah.
No, what's the game we played before we started?
Microscope.
Oh, Microscope.
What is it called?
Yeah,
Microscope. I was like microcosm. It's not microcosm.
Microscope.
I feel like it's so fun to like have just been able to like put all that stuff to the point where I hope it's like resonating to people who are watching, that when like, you know, I think the first time you like dropped an orb that wasn't our orb, I think we're like, ooh,
Yeah.
okay,
Yep.
yeah, you
Yep.
know, the Bard
Yep.
of the Blood, we're like, oh, that's like if it, you know, it feels really cool. But then also like it's also just like I'm amazed by like how you took that stuff that we built, and then also was able to be like, okay, but we're like this much in the like this much time has passed, and it feels really like it feels like a real, like to build all of space and for us to be traveling around in space feels really like immersive. Like it's easy to get caught up in it, and it's like I think you know, credit to you that I know you didn't bring this up so that we would start complimenting
did
you, but
not.
that's what I'm gonna do, right? But like the story that you have built is super engaging. I hope it's like resonating for like folks, or I think it is, because folks are tuning in each week. But it's certainly been fun, I think, for me, and I think for us to like get to then like play in this world that we set the foundation, and then you like built this mansion on top of it. That's like, I don't know, it's really cool.
you guys built some really cool stuff when we did the Microscope thing, right? Like, Microscope's a really fascinating game because there's no, like, game master, nobody's running it. Somebody, like, should know kind of how it goes to guide it, but we just, like, hand the ball off, right? Each turn that somebody takes, they can, like, create or destroy. On your turn, you could, like, build Atlantis up out of nowhere. This great civilization, like, rises up from the sky. There's, like, 1,000 years of their reign, and then, like, the next person goes and they can, like, shatter it in the earth, right? So we were all over the place, and it was the first time for most of us engaging with a game like this. So yeah, it took us a minute to kind of find our footing, and then we came back for the.
I want to play it
Me
again,
too.
Rich, because I feel like now that we've like all played it, I feel like to have a sense of what we're doing. I feel like the first time someone was like, "We're gonna role play this scene."
Yeah.
We're like,
Yeah.
"Oh," and here we are. We all love role playing games. We were like,
That's
I don't know
what's so
if I wanna
weird
role
about it.
play.
In Microscope, like, you set these eras of time, and then you can go to, like, a situation in that era. I forget what it's called, right? And then you can role play a scene within that situation, right? They're, like, the important moments, right? It's very much like, I don't know if anybody's watching Foundation, is a sci-fi series on Apple TV right now. It's one of, like, the foundational sci-fi, like, book series by Asimov. Really good stuff. The show is kind of cool. It's pretty good. Lee Pace is killing it. Anyway, Foundation is written like this, where you're kind of jumping across time and you're looking back at, like, this history. It's the foundation to something, right? So then, yeah, like, to role play characters that we've just created out of the ether. Like, we don't know what the characters are. And one of the cool things you could do when you role play scenes in Microscope is somebody can take the character of time and literally they just exist in the scene to be like, okay, but the bombs are coming closer. Like, this whole arc we did in the Decidium Spiral. The Decidium Spiral is like an asteroid field, but it's an asteroid field of a planet that's, like, revolving and, like, ripping itself apart in the revolutions, right? It's this big, like, spiraling planet tearing into pieces because it was bombed 1,000 years ago because these people tried to build a library. Like, well, why is that bad? I don't know. But, like, 30 different rebel organizations came together and sent an armada of ships here to destroy the library because they had the idea that, like, a centralized basis of knowledge would lead to a centralized government, which would lead to, like, a centralized authority and police, which they did not want to have, right? Freedom at all costs. So, like, what are you willing to sacrifice for that? That's all. There's all so much interesting stuff just in that one sentence. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
that whole the whole like building of the library and, like, the taking down of the library is like a season of
It
a TV
is.
show that we would just, like, role play
that I
and
missed
we
that
played
Microscope
that
game.
scene.
I know, I missed it.
We
too,
played
Taylor.
that scene.
Yeah.
We both missed
Oh,
it.
you both.
Really?
Oh,
But we
oh,
were
yeah,
there
like, I'm,
for
like, bragging about.
the one where we played the 5, and so we, yeah, the first
The
5.
five.
So
They're
we, like,
just called
created
the
those
5.
characters.
I
just kind
wasn't
of
there.
thin air, which was,
I was
you were
not.
there. Okay. Yeah.
So I'm like bummed I missed that because I know, like, that's just, like, my stuff, right? Like, the deep lore of the universe. So I definitely
I recorded
play
them.
Microscope.
I did record them, I think. I think we recorded them, but I know we didn't stream them, right? But we certainly saved the notes. But, like, yeah, we played the scene, right? So we've been dealing with, like, this, like, asteroid field that's occurred because of this event, and we played literally, like, the idea was that this attack was happening, this coordinated effort of these kind of rebel freedom fighters that are sort of attacking this library, but, like, are they terrorists or are they the good guys? Who's the antagonist? Who's the protagonist? Like, that's not really clear. It all depends on your perspective, and it almost all went to shit, right? But at the 11th hour, like, one ship pulled it together, and the place got bombed, and it all pulled off. And we.
I remember playing the scene. I wanted to play somebody who worked at the library who was going to try and take an orb, and then Josh played somebody, and I had to be like, okay, I got to, like, pivot, and I had this character that I fell in love with this character that I created, like, instantly, and just, like, they just have to live in this, like, 20 minutes. They're probably, like,
Yep.
dead. But, like, the character was, like, she works there, and she, like, comes out, and she's like, I think you at the beginning of each scene you have to say what is what is your character thinking,
Yeah.
like, one sentence. And I think the line I came up with was, I love him, but he's wrong. And then she walks down towards the library, and the reason, like, the thing is able to, is, like, she, like, stabs her, like, whoever this guy is,
that's so
like,
good.
in the back. It's just
Yeah.
he's dead, and then the attack
And
can happen.
Josh-
You're like, gosh, now I want to play this, like, person. Yeah.
Wow.
Then Josh takes a an orb.
Thank you very much for the sub bug. And Josh played this guy named Fred Cynic, who was like one of the people on the ship. And the idea was like Fred stole 7 orbs. In like the 11th hour, Fred was like, fuck it. Like, we're wrong. This is wrong. And they blew the library up, but Fred got 7 orbs off the planet. And so Monty, the leader of Bridge, is like a descendant of Fred and has one of the first 7 orbs, right? And the last thing was like, I remember there being a thing where like, oh God, what was it? Like Fred took the orbs or was able to take the orbs because he had a weapon that he was like using against everybody.
Well, I think he turned on his ship, right? He turned on everybody who was on the ship that they were like going to destroy.
But he used the gauntlet of the mithril giant to disable the ship, which led to like the ship like crashing, and it's how like he survived to get the orbs. So there's like a whole artifact that like the gauntlet of the mithril giant that like, what the fuck is that? I don't know, but Fred Cynic like used it like against the rebel forces on like a double betrayal. It's all like so.
Because I do this thing all the time where like when I'm like building a session out as a DM and I'm like, here's how this thing happened, and I come up with like something. And I have said this before, I think when you and I were planning a session, Rich, and I definitely did it with Austin, where we're like basically role playing out this scene that nobody will ever see. No, but it's like, for me, it's like the basis for like, how does what's happening in the session that the players will play in, how does it all make sense? And you get just like immersed, and sometimes it's in your own, you're creating it yourself, and you get caught up in it, and you're like, yeah, I remember the scene where like we were like, yeah, this professor who's drunk on like sylvan wine, like tearing the heart of the painting, and then later they like find the like heart of the painting, and they like are able to put it back on, and that's like how the clue. But like we were just like role playing out this like scene, but that was so fun about Microscope was like
that's the whole game.
Like, we got to see them, and it all matches.
It's very fascinating, right? So we laid a lot of cool groundwork, and it's a thing where like I try not to beat it over the head. It's one of these things about DMing to like circle it back to some of the conversation at the beginning. Like sometimes it feels so obvious, but I found as a DM, like the more explicit you can be, the better, right? You need to like kind of really say it to your players, like give them the thing that's like as unambiguous as possible. If you want them to like understand, then like make it easy for them to understand, right? If you're not trying to create confusion, because like confusion is the natural state of the D&D player, I think, you know what I mean? Like, as somebody who like plays a lot more in like, the day to day now, like, yeah,
I say this all the time, that people like when as a DM, when I'm like, oh shoot, I didn't do that thing, like I screwed up the whole thing. Well, they didn't know that like I had a thing recently where it's like, shoot, all the cultists were supposed to be wearing this colored robes. I was like, I didn't say it, and like they don't know what they don't know, And so players, there's such a knowledge, there is such a gap between what the DM knows and what the player knows that like, sometimes that's like to your own benefit that like the players don't know much, because like they're just like living in the experience, and if you forget something or you mess something up as a DM, they'll never notice. They don't really notice. And then but then the other piece is, sometimes you do have to give them the information, because how else are they going to know it?
No, for sure. We definitely will play Microscope again. I have it on my list of things like I badly want to do in the next like month here. I'd love to, because it's fun, and like you have no idea where it's going to go, and I don't necessarily have to run it, and it's like really, really empowering to do like a ton of kind of very off the wall creative stuff, right? Like the whole thing is there's ultimately an entire branch of like philosophy and sort of a cult, a religion, a sect, an organization of people called the Cynics, right? That are like devotees of Fred and like the kind of path of breadcrumbs he left across the galaxy when he made it out of the library with these 7 orbs, So it's all like really fascinating to me. It was good stuff. What kind of big questions do you guys have? I'm just curious, like, if you three have any, like, big thoughts or questions about, like, where we're at.
Mine isn't, like, a lore thing, but I've been trying to think a bit about, like, how do we make sure that things are accessible to someone? Like, if they fall behind, like, how do you jump in and watch Dragonfly 20 episodes in without having to feel like you have to go back to the beginning? And I don't know if it's, like, chapters or how we kind of want to do that, but I just think that it's just an interesting dilemma when you're like streaming a game like this that can go on and feels very immersive and expansive, and we've got all these threads that like we can't even keep track of all of them. Like, I don't know. I assume this is something that you have thought about as well, but.
Well, it is, and like we've started talking about it a little bit, but so it's certainly like a thing I've realized. Like I love the notion of like a D&D campaign that lasts for 3 years, but to like be creating content and be like, yeah, okay, it's episode 35. Like nobody wants to turn on episode 35. It's really hard, and like you could do it previously on every episode, and I think that would cover like a lot of ground. And it's something I'm like really actively like, okay, I'm gonna try to like schedule this in to like do it, not just my recap. I try to give a good recap for you as the players at the start of every session. It's part of like what you do at the start of every D&D session anyway. Like this 10-year game that I ran, we played every 3 months, like good luck that those guys remembered anything from session to session, right? But I think like an actual like, yeah, okay, a 2-minute like boom. Here's like what's important. Let's show you the NPCs. Let's do a slideshow. Let's like show you the places that were important. Here's the map. Let's do a little like travel by map Indiana Jones type stuff, right? That could all be really useful. But we've definitely talked about chapters. And so yeah, this is season 1 of Dragonfly. I think in my mind, the end of season 1 is coming soon. At the end of this arc, whatever it is, as my clocks are moving forward. I talked to you guys about it a little bit, but like my power went out for like 8 hours very arbitrarily like 3 weeks ago, and I sat here with my Dragonfly notebook and went like wild. I had like stacks of books, all of like my manual of the planes, my player's handbook to the planes, my like Spelljammer books were out. I'm like digging into everything, like my magic item compendium, like so much stuff. And my clocks all got like very defined, and I'm very clear about like what's happening around you right now. So I think that like a couple of things may or may not happen, and we're going to end chapter 1 and like reset with the chapter 2. Like I think it'll be a great onboarding point. Some point within like the next month here, it'll probably like coincide with the start of the new year, which sounds like a good idea now that I'm thinking about it. And then I'm gonna like look for like smaller arcs from there, right? Like chapters, like really trying to like think about the close, because I think somewhere in that range of like 10 to 15 episodes. We don't go that long, 3 hours. We're not consistently a 4-hour stream. Some of them are. That I think it's digestible, and it'll like create easier moments to get people on. But I'm open to feedback, believe me.
Do I need to create the wiki? If I had
Oh,
time, I would
gosh.
create the Dragonfly wiki. Be good, right? It'd be so
Yeah.
good.
So I recently bought notebooks because I was like, I'm going to be a better D&D player and I'm going to take better notes. And so I have this like aspiration of rewatching every Dragonfly episode so that I can like take all the notes and like whatever. But like, gosh, I like, what are the odds? It's not going to happen. But
Don't hold
I
yourself
have
to
dreams.
that task. Yeah.
One thing I'll say, like, I mean, the thing that is tricky, like, Critical Role has like, if you look at like people have like broken their stuff down into arcs. Like you look at like I would often like look at season 2 and be like, oh, where am I in this arc? But it wasn't something that I was immediately going to be like, oh, like, okay, like there's just a thing I think that inevitably some people can't go like I'm gonna jump in on episode 14 or whatever, but hopefully people like I feel with this honestly, like you could jump in and like even at the beginning of episode 1, like it's like sort of a beginning, but we all had stuff that we knew that other people did. It's not like everybody knows everything all the time.
No.
And so no matter where you jump in, if you're like if people are watching this and like I haven't watched any, but surprised you're here for a fireside.
Yeah.
Well, welcome. Thank you for like
maybe.
hanging out. I think there are, in fact, a couple people hanging out
Cool.
here that like have not watched Dragonfly. Yeah.
I mean, I think just jump in and like that we are like a pretty, we're not like not looking at the chat. A lot of
We're pretty
I think
aware.
a lot of us like follow.
Yeah.
So like if you like are like what's that
who's
like
this guy?
feel free to ask who's that because it's easy for us I think sometimes to get caught up in like it's that but like not explain who that is. So like I think I can easily do that, but I also think we're pretty good at being like we end up like it might not happen in the moment we see that person, like who is it, like later we're like so that was that guy, right, from like that planet. As
somebody like doing like tabletop role playing content all year, playing D&D on streams, I try to like reset for the viewers, like even if the players know like, oh yes, this is Lothar, once an enemy who hunted you, but now has turned. You know,
Yeah,
like,
to
Well,
bring
we're
up
also not all here every
I
week.
know.
Yeah.
Right?
And for this game especially, yeah, like we
Yeah.
don't have every player every week. It was built this way. It's a feature, not a bug, right? And to that end, I don't expect the players to have the homework of like, you better watch last week's episode, right? So I really try to create the moment at the beginning of the session where like, what you need to know, I will say. And I might monologue for 3 minutes, and I get very self-conscious about it, but like I'll try to like reset it and frame every episode up. And the fact is, like, our mandate, we joke, our mandate is whimsy. Like, we're pretty fun. Like, we're pretty like lighthearted and fun. But also, like, yeah, there's terrible space bugs and like slavers and like horrible shit happening all over the place. Undead monsters, like, you know, like there's it's dark and hair heavy and scary and there's bad things in the world. But like, really, we do have fun, and we are like a pretty accessible group that are more than happy to explain. I know for me, streaming D&D specifically, like when I have to run the game, gosh, it's so hard for me to manage the chat while I'm running the game and like trying to keep my finger on the pulse of all the players, like, and manage the Roll20, like to also like stay right on top of it, right? But you guys are all really, really good, so yeah.
Well, yeah, it's so much easier to play and read the chat than it is to do. I can't even, when running in post-show
Oh my
recaps,
gosh, the
like keep
general
track of
chat,
the
yeah,
the chat at the same time. Like I have to go back.
It's a
to
lot.
it.
It can be a lot all at once to juggle. Yeah, I don't know. This year has been like a real journey for me. You know, I'm like coming up on the 1 year anniversary of like streaming D&D like on a full-time regular basis, and it's been super rewarding. And Dragonfly has definitely emerged for me as the like, yeah, this could be like a game that I run for a couple of years. I would love to like run this until whenever, you know, forever. Like, because that's the thing that happens with D&D games. Like, I think a lot of people start with the expectation that like we're gonna play every week forever, and like get to 20th level until we're done, and like then the games die and like they flounder. And so I've tried to be very like compartmentalized in the other stuff that I've done. Like Humblewood, I have a small arc. Let's like take care of that and then see what's next. Firelight Tales, like, I joke, but like we just finished that stream. Titan's Heirs, I started in January and was like, we'll be done by March, you guys. You know, like, I think it's probably like 8 or 10 episodes.
We
you
should have
know?
known. We should have known.
And like, yeah, and I cut so much stuff, Taylor.
It makes me
Not
sad.
really. I didn't really, but like, I just like, you know, I hastened it in a way. So I don't know. It's been like interesting for me to learn.
Lethargy will get you.
Yeah,
Get you.
it truly will. I don't know. I'm excited about like where we're going next with Dragonfly, and I'm excited for like a soft reset season 2. Right, like great time to get started. It'll be coming soon. If you've never watched an episode and like you need to start with like an episode 1, season 2, it'll be a good place to jump on. How's that for a promise?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I definitely had a moment like a month ago, I think. I can't remember, but we said something about you know, start thinking about backstory stuff. Maybe we'll go like visit some other things. And I just like had a moment where I like dumped a bunch of bio stuff in my character sheet, and I messaged Rich and I was like, I did it. It's all there. Like I figured out everything about Doc that I was like hand waving before.
Mhm. Yeah, I need to do that. That's on my list of things to do. Lex is like honestly still like, out of every character I've played, she's like such a mystery. And I don't want to think that it's because she had like a stable childhood, but I feel like
I was gonna say earlier, what a risky play to put nice, stable parents on the board.
I'm waiting for that.
Oh, yeah.
Lex needs some serious trauma, I think.
It was a very risky play. I know a couple of us have been talking about Arcane recently, but there is part of me that has some like Vi Jinx energy between Lux and Doc. There's like a little bit
I
of
don't know
that.
what that means. Oh no.
It's okay. You don't need to.
Well,
They're just like these sisterly characters,
Yeah.
and like one of which goes through some real trauma that's like rough, you know, and the other one is like, you know, protective, you know. Anyway, it's been
Yeah,
it's
we
been
would know
really
nothing
fun
about
show.
that. I don't know
No,
what you're
no,
talking
no,
about,
no.
Rich. That doesn't
Yeah.
sound familiar at all. It's fine.
No,
What?
doesn't resonate. It's a story you would love. That's fine. Yeah, it's been a struggle for me because like in one sense, like I'm really enjoying the slow exploration of stuff. But in the other, I do want to go everywhere all at once. Like I want to go to Pavis, I want to go to Luna, I want to like see what happens next. I gave you guys portals, or you guys a portal. I'm like, yeah, jump through this. Go to the Shadow Plane. Go to the Ethereal Plane. How about this library? How
But
about
like,
these
meanwhile, this
interdimensional
guy
like,
is trying to
merchant
kill
guilds?
you and hunt you all
Yeah.
down. So you should
You're
probably
being
deal with
hunted.
that.
We need to
You're
take
being
care of
hunted.
him. We do.
You-
Like that's
yeah.
that has to happen.
There's been a lot of like talk of like, do we need to go back to talk with Yavanna as well?
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
go back to the home.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, wait, so we can
Poor
just
Rich
do...
wants to go every. Well, I mean, we haven't visited Homeworld, but
No one's checking up on us?
That was like
bad.
a whole nother thing, the whole Homeworld thing. We talked about it with like the Wheel of Time podcast, where Josh is like, does the world have a name? And I'm like, Robert Jordan doesn't give it a name. Like the people call it the world. It's the world, you know. They're referred to as
yeah.
like
But
the
what do other people
Westerlands and
call
stuff.
What do people call Homeworld? Like, because like, the different there's other
I know,
planets
and
here.
so like we were
also
like,
have-
what's the planet that we started on? And a couple of people were like, well, I want to be from the planet that the ship leaves. Like I never have like left the planet before. I want to not be somebody that like came to this planet to like get on a ship, but is in fact from this planet getting on a ship. And like that's Jake primarily at this point. The rest of the four of you all have like come here. And so I was like, yeah, well, it's Homeworld. And I just think that that's like so funny that I like called it Homeworld. And like, what do other people call it?
I like you could now you have a joke where like we go like that place we call it whatever some
Oh yeah.
stupid name right
yeah. We'll see if we end up there along the way. I don't know. You guys don't have any like big questions? How about crazy theories? Are there any like major desires of like things you want to do sooner than later?
I mean, I can't stop thinking about the dragon situation.
Wait, which dragon situation in particular?
Yavanna and like the scene that we saw like while we were on Cerelia or leaving Cerelia, I guess. Like what? Like are like dragons like ruling the world? Like what's their deal? Why do they want all of the knowledge? Are their intentions good, or are their intentions to like gather the knowledge and take over the world, like control everybody? Like, what are we actually doing? Did Yavanna really just be like, let me get a group of people and just have fun, everybody?
Yeah.
Like, just go on. Like, maybe I'll see ya. like, is she keeping an eye on us? Like, if she is, how? Like. And what about the Dragonfly? Like clearly there are capabilities that like we don't know about yet, and like
oh
my gosh, yeah, there's a lot in my head all the time. But
there's a lot to unpack there. The Yavanna of it all is interesting. I do look forward to like going back and doing some smaller flashback scenes of like the all of you kind of meeting Yavanna and how you ended up on the ship. We've gotten a lot of fun information there. And I don't know, this is a thing where like maybe this is a question for me to you guys. What's like the mileage on the cutaways? Do you guys like that? Like that was a thing I've done a couple of times where like we open on a random scene. We like closed on Yavanna on that one. And I never know if it's like jarring and confusing or if it's like a fun little through line to track on the side.
They're not mutually exclusive. Like it's jarring and like what is going on, but also like what is going on? Like this is so cool. Like absolutely.
Well, I'll have go for it, Grace, please.
Well, it's a little bit like I don't remember a dragon thing from that, but obviously I didn't take good enough notes. But then there's where like Grace knows that like the benefactor of the first 5 was a dragon who was like shapeshifting.
Yep.
Yeah, so is there like a group of like benefactors that like influence the universe?
It's all the same
like
one. How long the dragon?
As long as you trust us that we like we all play we're all DMs where we end up like some of us have looped each other in on like a session that we end up like playing in like as long as our characters are able to play to what we know, I think the cutscenes are fun, especially I think for if it's as I said before, there's a bunch of stuff that like we all as players sort of know because we did a lot of world building before the game, but if there's a tool that you can use, ultimately we're telling a story, and if there's a way to like express that to the people who are watching that is outside the like traditional like we're sitting around the table playing, like you tell this cutscene or whatever, or any other way that you could think to do it. I think it's fun. I like the way you I often feel like you have sort of a movie or TV style of DMing.
Yeah, and it's something that I have never experienced before, like playing with Rich, is this like talking about where the camera is focusing in and everything, and it's something that I've like started doing as well, that I like have totally stolen from Rich.
One of my favorite moments ever of all time watching a game of D&D is when Vess in the marathon steps on somebody's neck and thunder steps off of it, and Troy says the camera follows Vess, and somebody in the chat goes, yeah, where else is
that? yeah. Where the fuck else would it be pointed? I thought it was Melissa that said that in the chat. That was one of my like highlight moments.
It might have been Josh Lemur, actually, who's in the chat.
It might have, yeah. That was truly like an epic moment. So it's a shared language for us, and especially like bringing it to post-show recaps, which is a community of people where we've come together because we like love to talk about television and film, right? We love to like dissect this stuff. And after like the one commonality that I can be pretty confident for most people except Taylor who've come to post-show recaps is that they've listened to thousands of hours of Josh Wigler talk about TV.
I actually boycott Josh Wigler.
Yeah, me too. I'm getting there. Except for the Wheel of Time. Don't do that. But
I'm on one.
It's like
I plug my ears.
It's very much like a shared language that in a lot of ways, like he has taught a lot of us, and like listening to these podcasts has taught us to like think about this stuff differently probably than many of us did. This is like feedback that I just get from people talking to people like in the community over years, right? So it's a really like easy, accessible, shared language to help us, because 5th edition more than any other edition before, like, yeah, you're action heroes, the characters are built to be like incredible. You're like pushing and like doing this incredible stuff. You don't need to rest for days after a dragon like breathes on you and you almost die, after a demon like beats you into the ground, Melissa. Like, your friend, I don't know what you're talking about. A friend can like pray to the god of dragons, and you drag yourself up out of the sewer water and like kick ass because you are a 5th edition goddamn D&D character. And so part of that like lends itself to me, like, in my mind, to like, yeah, like it is like it's a show that we're all like putting on for each other, right? It's this really easy way to like frame what's important, where we should be looking, and I love the cutaways. I just worry, I like lose confidence in myself sometimes with some of this stuff. I'll be like, I'm gonna try this out, and then I try it, and then I don't do it again, and part of it's like habit, but part of it's like whatever. Like maybe I'm not as good at that as other things, so I'm gonna keep doing.
No, it's so good.
I really dig it.
Yeah. Cool. No, that's good to know. I dig it. It's a thing that fits better, I think, in a game like here, especially because you guys are all ringers, right? Like everybody is a DM. Every single person in this group, like everybody. Like Kurt's like run plenty of games. Taylor's like run games this way. All of you guys, like, and so, yeah. Like knowing that I can share something like that and you're not gonna like take it out of context. It's a thing that like we never would have done as 13-year-olds, but like I love to do now because like the culture around the game has changed so much,
Yeah, and like behind the screen, it happens in PSR all the time where like you're talking through sessions with the other DMs and suddenly it's you get a last minute like, oh, I'm actually free and can like sign up for this game, and it's like, okay, well, you don't know the thing at the very end, like, sorry. And yeah, like
Austin and I set up like whole, like it was set up for a live game to set up the PvP, and so that I was running with Austin, and Austin and I like planned out the whole thing because he said he couldn't play. The last minute, he's like, oh, I can actually play, and I'm like, I'll add you in, play to what you know, like Bram. I feel like we've all in some ways built characters who are like a bit like not as smart as like we should be. We probably want our characters to be because we're all like, I don't know what that.
I don't know what's going on.
What that means. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No, it was that situation specifically that I was thinking of because I know you've talked about it before. So yeah.
It's a perpetual thing with the DMs. Like this is the thing we talk about for like the Mooting 9 or whatever. Everybody's got like the DM tag at PSR. Like part of it is like, hey, like you're gonna get spoiled. Like you're coming behind the screen. We're gonna like tell you what's up. Like you need to like be cool to share what you're planning and spoil us. Don't worry. Like I'm good for it. Like I will show up. I am like, the DM's like advocate in my seat. I always try to be like, I want to be a player that's going to like feed that energy back and like push towards the place that like I know they want to go in like an organic way. But yeah, sometimes you got to play pretend. Like that's what we're doing. You guys, we're role playing.
But also, I feel like what can be sort of fun about art is that like we end up getting the thing of like, oh, you're doing that in a session. That's so cool. Like that's gonna be so fun. And then you get to know that you're gonna play in it. And then I think we all love D&D enough that we like play it many hours per week.
Yeah.
That like we end up getting excited about like very little things in a session
We do.
that like doesn't need to come up in the plan. It doesn't come up in the planning because but I'm like, oh my god, what a brilliant NPC like improv choice that you made in that moment that absolutely delights me and surprises me. And players make the table, as much as we can set it up and do, players fill in, color in the coloring book, and make it fun. And the session is never exactly what you think it will be, and wouldn't be fun if I was just a DM. You just sat and like moved all the pieces on a board, So
true story. It's a true story. I love like watching everybody else run games, and like there's always something that like everybody has to like teach me as far as I'm concerned. I don't know. You guys will be excited to know, perhaps, maybe not, but after Dune, Grace and I like did the Dune podcast a couple of weeks ago. I'm very high on Dune. I really loved like Villeneuve's Dune, and I like watched it a couple times, was super psyched, and then I was like, well, let me like go back and watch the Lynch one. Like, well, let me watch the whole sci-fi miniseries and the sci-fi miniseries Children of Dune also as well. Well, let me like go watch all of like this Asimov show Foundation, because I read Foundation a couple of years ago. Well, maybe I should like start rewatching Battlestar Galactica, and like all of these things I've
filmed at my undergrad university, by the way.
That is amazing. You live in the coolest place in the world, except for the poor infrastructure, as aforementioned. Anyway, I watched all of these things very much in the mindset of like D&D in space, like very much like thinking big thoughts about Dragonfly and like where I want to go. And I have been on like this ferocious like bender of science fiction right up until the Wheel of Time premiere last week. Like, that's all I was doing, was like watching sci-fi. Yeah, and then I've like pivoted back in. But yeah, I'm like primed. I'm primed. I have a lot of like crazy Dragonfly ideas, and I'm really excited for like where we're gonna go next. I think like closing the chapter on season 1 with like these 3 kind of arcs of like Malpiati Prime, Cerelia, the Decidium Spiral. Like that's cool to me, and I'm excited about where we're gonna go next. So I look forward to like the next couple weeks. I don't know. Do you guys have any like parting thoughts or ideas or words?
No,
it's just that good. It is fun. We love to play
speechless.
D&D.
Speechless.
Yeah, to Grace's point, we play like many hours of D&D amongst us in
a lot. That's a lot.
Well,
I
that's
don't even want to add it up.
Rich messages us and he's like, yeah, this booster's hitting me, and like I'm jonesing so hard that I'm like, we could just hang out and talk. It's okay. Like we don't have to play D&D.
Like,
Yep.
Dude, I'm so bad. I'm getting worse. Like this
Taylor got a desk job and has started playing D&D
PvP
40
down,
hours a
never
week.
not in there.
Taylor,
Never not in there now.
full time.
Like
Yeah.
any chance I can get. And now I have a willing partner in David, and like it's just never ending. Like we've been playing out
like
one day for like weeks.
For weeks, you guys have been playing out the same day.
So bad.
It's madness. My favorite thing is like, for folks who don't know, like if you join the Post Show Recaps Discord, there is a little bot that will track your XP, and you earn XP like every time you post a message, you get XP, right? And you could go every week and be like, oh, rank. And for like a month straight, Taylor like crushing the board every week, making this like slow crawl from the back. As like, I don't check. I need to like opt out. I can't with the levels that give me like agita and anxiety.
still check?
I don't check ever, but I do compulsively go down the channels to like read everything, like Melissa might relate to. And I'm like, oh, so I do poke my head into the bot channel like
Oh,
once
I do
a
see the
week.
weekly winners were posted yet. The
And it's
most
like,
experience of the week. I see
Taylor crushing the XP. She's like
Dude.
farming XP on this one day
David,
in
like,
Play by
I
Post
keep,
Town.
David, I like message back and forth. He's like, I hope you don't mind like all these like lore dumps. And I'm like, give me more. Like, give me more. Like, I just want to
Oh
know.
my God.
Tell me all the things.
Elves don't sleep, but I think Imre needs a nap, man.
I couldn't even use that excuse because they had like the morning where like they did this gauntlet, like this workout, right?
Yeah.
They had the sparring, and then she like there was the whole thing that happened in the sparring match, but she went back and rested in the afternoon. And then they met up afterwards. And she stays up all night. She's a drought.
Never long rest before a conversation with Davern Kane in town. I'm just kidding. I love Davern. I love David so much. We are gonna meander off here. Thank you guys for hanging out and talking about D&D. Thank you guys for being like so fun to play with every week. Thank you everyone in the chat who came and like hung out with us tonight. For anybody who's not watched Dragonfly, it's really fun. It's D&D in space. Usually we roll dice and fight bugs and talk to old
Lots
kobolds.
of bugs. Like less bugs in chapter 2, maybe.
I did not watch Starship Troopers, so definitely less bugs. Yeah, you're safe. You're safe. I'll pivot away from the bugs. More robots, less bugs. I'm ready. Anyway. Melissa, what are you doing in the world? What's like going on with you? What are you podcasting about?
I am podcasting about the Divergent series over on YA with Kevin Mahadeo. So we just recorded the second one, Insurgent, this week. It's bad, y'all. It's not a good movie. But the book is really good. And so we basically just talk a lot about like how the movie could have been so much better if it had done things like the book. But that's fine. I think it's still enjoyable. And so, yeah, check it out. We've covered Twilight and Hunger Games and scary movies, and it's a good time. And then on Friday, I'll be here doing cute woodland creature things with Humbleyear. So that's
cutest show on Twitch. Cutest show on Twitch. Your partner Kevin Mahadeo also trapped on the Dragonfly along with all you guys as he turns up every once in a while here playing Yana, who's very fun. And yeah, I'm so glad that like we got Yana on the ship. We got to get Kevin back one of these days. Probably to fight Occam.
Yeah.
That would be poignant.
Oh yeah.
Probably that would be good.
Fitting.
Yeah. But yeah, so for the patron feed over on Push Show Recaps and otherwise, I have a Sabotage the DM Arcane Ward episode 3 is Tuesday, November 30th.
Yay!
So that's also happening over twitch.tv/Sabotage the DM. See if my cute little land druid Clove can. She turned into a crocodile. All of her friends fell into the water. She's desperately trying to save them. Who knows how that's gonna go? Probably badly.
Yay! I love Clove.
You guys got to sue the Netflix series it's too close of a name.
I
They're
know.
trying to up your Arcane Ward and then Arcane comes out.
Yeah, it's pretty sus.
Joe's
Maybe
just
they're
clever.
huge.
Joe's got clever marketing. He's a wise
The
man.
SEO.
He's a wise man, that DM who's getting sabotaged over there. Go check those guys out. They've been busy, but they're kind of coming off hiatus, getting ready to fire stuff back up. I know we've been talking about the Dragon Wing episode 2. We were going to do it yesterday, and I was like, or on Thursday, and I was like, I've got nothing going on. Oh, no, wait, that's Thanksgiving. I'm sorry, I can't. I gotta go eat a turkey. Sorry, gentlemen. Figure the Americans screw it all up. Melissa,
have your Thanksgiving in October.
I was gonna say we did Thanksgiving a month ago.
I'm totally doing Canadian Thanksgiving with you guys next year. No way we're not.
Yeah, amazing. Come on up.
Yeah, for real. Also, Melissa, I went back and listened to the YA. All the I can't even remember the name of it anymore. All the Twilight stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned this. Why? Why did you do that to yourself?
for reasons. Because like I've been thinking a lot about Vancouver again and about running the Vancouver game that I run, which is a World of Darkness game with vampires and werewolves and wizards, oh my, living in the city of Vancouver. And I was like, how did I not like really bombard the two of you to like let me come on one of those podcasts and talk about vampires and werewolves in Vancouver? Like, how did that not happen? I don't know. Anyway.
I don't know. That's
They were
that's a
really
feeling
fun
on both our
podcasts.
parts, I think. Yeah.
They were really fun podcasts. I will admit, in this moment of shame and like delusion from my COVID booster, I went back and watched all the Twilight movies. I listened to your first podcast. I watched all those movies, and then I listened to the rest of your podcast. So it was like the podcasts are definitely better than the movies.
Okay.
It's
a
too bad that there's
long
no
shot.
other YA vampire or werewolf genre movies at all. So that's too bad.
Yeah.
You can't go on it. You can eventually go on the podcast to talk about something else.
Right. Yeah.
Because that Twilight is the only one
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
that does
Yeah.
vampires and werewolves.
True.
Yeah.
It's definitely the one. That monolith. Yeah. They
Yeah,
pretty much
that's
set
true.
the standard.
Yeah.
Anyway, Grace, what are you doing in the world? You're always doing fun stuff.
Yeah, so on Mondays, I join Josh Rigler and Jess Sterling to chat about the newest episode of Succession. It's been very fun. I can't believe we're like more than halfway. I think we're 2/3 of the way down. There's only 9 episodes this season. So only 3 episodes left, but that is very fun, a very fun podcast. Doing lots of movie coverage. So last week we did Passing and The Harder They Fall, 2 Netflix movies. We were joined by Chappelle. This week we watched Ghostbusters Afterlife with Mike Bloom.
Ooh, I can't wait to
So-
listen to that.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So that should drop later this week, and then we have a new patron podcast that just dropped. We're entering the Matrix as
Yes.
a build-up for the new 4th movie that drops on December 22nd. We are watching all 3 movies plus some additional bonus content. I think there was like an anime.
The
Animatrix.
Animatrix is so cool, Grace. You're gonna get so hyped to play a polearm master after you watch the Animatrix.
Oh, yeah?
That's all I'll say. I've like badly wanted to
Wow.
play a polearm wielding like monk since I watched that 20 years ago
Have a
or whatever. It's
Pole arm master, half orcs, half dwarf fighter in a game I'm running, and he's very annoying
Yes.
because he
Okay.
uses a glaive and he gets the attack of opportunity every time they get within 10 feet of him. So that's fun. Only once, so he only gets 1 reaction. Yeah, there's that, and then on Fridays, twitch.tv/Haley Strong. Watch the latest episode of Taskmaster. This week is the series finale,
Yeah.
series 12. Episode 10. So this will be the final episode. We'll come back when Champion of Champions happens, and then probably Series 13 as well. But that's been fun. I'm on Twitter at HighForGrace.
Go give Grace a follow. She's doing a lot of cool stuff. That all sounds very exciting. Taylor, how about you? Where do you want us to be paying attention? What should like we be hype on?
Gosh, I'm not doing anything currently, but I am really like trying to manifest like Dragon Age again. I'm like getting back into it. I saw this TikTok the other day that was like, your ADHD brain has you trapped, and then like your childhood hyperfixation comes back to like save you. And I've been like thinking about it. So I'm manifesting it. So if you're interested, all of my Dragon Age stuff is on YouTube, which is like linked on my Twitch channel on twitch.tv/Ronnie422. And I'm also on Twitter at Ronnie422. So if you're interested, go check that out because I'm going to start doing it again because I miss it.
Well, I'm going to contradict you right now because you will be featured tomorrow night right here on Twitch TV/DM Philly, along with Tom Palmer and the BB President, where we are going to be doing a Wheel of Time
Yes.
spoiler book club discussion.
Love
Now,
it.
Taylor has only read up to book 6 point what? Like 1?
Yeah.
6.1. That sounded generous according to the face she just gave me. Nonetheless, we're not going to go like full series.
She's read the
Right.
title of the
Right.
I'm like the
We're-
first
Six
couple
of us.
chapters in. I'd say that's 0.1, right?
I gave you a 0.1. Yeah. Ilyena. I love a
Ilyena.
prologue.
I love good data. Sometimes I do like to check what percentage of a book I am
Oh, I
through.
constantly
like to
do that.
divide.
On,
Go
on
figure.
Kobo.
The
Yeah,
page
yeah.
number divided by the
Go
total
figure.
page number.
Oh,
We'll check that. Just
Math.
like that.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
That's
My
terrifying.
Kobo fits that
It's
number
just
at me.
division. That's just division.
Division is
I
scary.
love it so
Oh.
much.
Oh my gosh!
Grace.
The other day I
That's
had
just
to do
percentages.
subtraction in D&D, and I referred to it as reverse math. I was like,
Reverse math.
otherwise known as subtraction, but my brain like got
Subtraction.
that word
Reverse
in
math.
the common.
Well, I'm glad that the idea of math is that exciting for everybody. That's how you know we're D&D nerds. Nonetheless, Taylor will be back tomorrow night. We're going to do a spoiler conversation from a book reader's perspective. We're going to go deep on like the changes from these first 3 episodes for somebody that's read up until book 5, 6.1. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take that extra one away from you. And that's going to be really fun. I think that's going to be exciting. I'm really looking forward to that.
Great.
And then that's at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific tomorrow night. And then on Friday, Melissa and Grace and myself and Austin and Aston and Aiden are all. Wow, there's a lot of A's there. How did I not put that together before now? I probably do put that together every time I say all 5 of your names. We will be back on Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. Other times in other parts of the world. I think it's noon in Australia. It's definitely like 1 a.m. for Aiden in Britain. I'm drunk on COVID vaccine. I got to get out of here. Thank you for following. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you, ladies, for enduring my COVID drunkenness. We'll talk to you guys later. We'll be back. Bye.
Bye.